Don't move. Give me that old flame look, Cass. The flash cracked. Cassidy Rhodes didn't blink. A man who once swore he loved her angled in for the photo close enough to borrow her glow, not close enough to earn it. Off she said. He withdrew, smile lacquered. It's for the cause. Your cause. My cause doesn't need your cameo. She turned toward the chandeliered ballroom of the Astor Hotel donors in tuxes, waiters sliding through light, a quartet stitching civility over noise. Rhodes Global glowed 10 feet high above the auction stage. Every step she took pulled eyes. That was the trouble with being gravity. Marcus Hale appeared at her shoulder like an exit sign. Media Rappin' 5. Make it 3, Cassidy said, and tell that photographer consent isn't a filter. The man drifted off. Cassidy exhaled. A young server froze mid-floor as a tray of crystal shivered. From the edge of the room, a custodian moved lean steady, catching 2 flutes mid-slide with a patience that read like habit. He spoke to the server. The kid's shoulders unknotted. Who's that? Cassidy asked. Night Crew Marcus said. Silas Boone. She filed the name. Surviving in rooms like this meant filing everything. A service door swallowed them into the honest hum of the back corridor concrete fans' mop sinks. Cassidy loved back corridors. They didn't lie. Okay, Marcus offered a water. I'm tired of being a backdrop, she said, twisting the cap. I build the engine and someone still wants to stand in front of the car for a picture. Gala season brings performative philanthropy. Marcus kept his tone soft. Money doesn't change people. Cassidy said, it peels the paint off. She took a drink. Tonight, I watched 3 men try to borrow my reflection, 2 donors barter for a plaque, and a board member ask if compassion was deductible. You raised 8 figures for literacy. We did, she said, and I still don't know who in that room believes anything when the cameras go home. Marcus waited. He knew her ice had 2 temperatures, anger and hurt. Tonight, it was both. What are you thinking? He asked. That I'm done guessing, she said. Give people power and they show you who they are. So let's give some away. Cass 4 cards, she said, already scaffolding it. Black, unlimited. Tied to an oversight account so we see every charge in real time. No guidance, no strings. 72 hours. That is bold, he said, and legally complicated. Draft, airtight releases, Cassidy said. Recipients acknowledge it's a gift, no expectation. We reserve the right to suspend if it turns ugly. Recipients, Marcus asked. Vanessa Cole Cassidy said. Influencer orbiting my table all night. He typed. Vanity with velocity. Clara Jensen, she continued. My strategy assistant. Smart, hungry, already measuring the corner office. Ambition with a spreadsheet. Bianca Torres. Event architect. Brilliant at making things look generous. And the foil, Marcus asked. Cassidy saw again the custodian's hands steadying the server's tray. No theater. Just a small mercy practiced like muscle memory. Someone with nothing to prove and everything to lose, she said. Silas Boone. Marcus waited. Cass optics rich testing pour. Are the point, she said. If money is a blacklight, I want to see every stain and every clean surface we've ignored. He managed a rueful smile. If this leaks, they'll call it an experiment by a billionaire on civilians. It's a gift with supervision, Cassidy said. A mirror, not a trap. I'm done asking people to tell me who they are. I'll watch them show me. Vanessa, Clara, Bianca, Boone. Marcus summarized. Cards by morning. Oversight pings every transaction. Counsel looped. Cassidy nodded. The decision, settled like the good weight of a door, finally shut. They returned for the final appeal. The auctioneer turned arithmetic into theater. Cassidy turned thanks into fuel. As the room thinned, she watched Vanessa pose beneath the Rhodes Global logo, smile calibrated to the millimeter. Watched Clara whisper to a board liaison calendar open. Watched Bianca stage a candid shot she'd storyboarded. And across the way, she watched Silas Boone fold a damp linen and tuck it so the kid wouldn't have to moving like a man trained to leave space better than he found it. Tomorrow, she told Marcus, we begin. What do you want to find? He asked. Proof that goodness doesn't need a spotlight, she said. At the risk of mixing metaphors, he said we're about to turn on a very bright one. 7 a.m. The ballroom smelled of wax and lilies and the faint satisfaction of deals done. Cassidy sat at a high top near the dark stage with 4 black envelopes under her palm. She wrote each name in silver ink. Vanessa Cole, Clara Jensen, Bianca Torres. Her pen hovered at the 4th. Then committed. Silas Boone. Footsteps. Marcus's cadence measured. Security cam shows Boone in a side hall, he said. Helping the young server haul empties to the scullery. No chatter, just work. Also paper cut. He taped his own fingers so he wouldn't bleed on linens. Cassidy pressed her thumb over the S as if sealing wax. The gesture surprised her. "Deliver by 9, she said. "What do I tell them?" Marcus asked. "That it's a thank you," Cassidy said, "and that we expect nothing." He lifted a brow. "You don't expect nothing." "I prefer to be surprised," she said. "At least it will be honest." Marcus collected 3 envelopes. He left the 4th. "You'll deliver Boone's Some experiments deserve to begin without an audience," she said. They crossed the dark room. Custodial carts whispered. Somewhere, a vacuum droned like distant surf. At the service elevator, a figure in a navy work shirt adjusted a cracked plastic bin and nudged it with his hip so it wouldn't slam the door. He moved with the quiet choreography of someone who understood how noise lands on tired people. Cassidy stopped 10 paces back. It was odd what she noticed a strip of cartoon bandage at his knuckle. The way his keys were organized, not a jingle but a soft, deliberate clink. The small courtesy of propping the elevator for an older porter hustling behind him. "You don't know him," Marcus said softly. "I know enough," she said. "Tomorrow I'll know more." She didn't hand him the envelope then. She didn't call out his name. She watched the doors close on his reflection, watched the gold numbers climb, and felt a decision turn inside her like a key. Outside Seattle was a hush of sodium lamps over wet streets. She slid the final envelope into her clutch and headed for the car. Somewhere between the ballroom and the curb, she recognized the feeling in her chest, unfamiliar and inconvenient anticipation, clean of cynicism. 3 days, she said into the night. "Show me who you are." "This is a mistake," Marcus said. "Or it's clarity," Cassidy replied. Morning spilled through the atrium of Rhodes Global like a spill of clean light across glass and steel. Downstairs, baristas wrote names on cups. Upstairs, Cassidy set 4 black envelopes on a slate table the way a surgeon lays out instruments. 3 days, she said. No limits, no instructions. We watch, we learn. Legal, Marcus held up a stack of signed releases. Ironclad, opt-in, gifts, not compensation. We can freeze a card if we see criminal risk. Good, Cassidy said. Let's go meet the mirrors. Vanessa Cole arrived, first, trailed by perfume and a friend pointing a phone. She wore a dress that behaved like a rumor and a grin bright enough to monetize. Marcus met her at the lobby cafe not because she was important, but because she always behaved as if she were. Vanessa, he said evenly, Cassidy Rhodes asked me to give you this. Vanessa framed the envelope with her fingers. Wait, let me get this for my reels. On the record, Marcus said you're receiving an unrestricted gift for 72 hours. No obligation, no content, and no expectation. Babe, everything is content. She slit the envelope with a manicured nail, then gasped in all caps. Unlimited. Marcus nodded. Transactions are monitored for fraud prevention. Otherwise, it's yours to invest in a more generous version of me, she finished. She turned to her phone. Hey, angels, today we're talking impact. True influence isn't flexing well, it's tasteful flexing. Vanessa Marcus said the camera will remember what you do not, who you say you are. She winked. Relax, I don't buy things, I collect moments. She tucked the card into a crystal clutch, then glanced at the ceiling like it was a mirror. And the right moments buy everything. As she floated away, Marcus texted, Vanessa received. Performing for Lens already. A dot appeared. Of course, Cassidy wrote back. Clara Jensen didn't float. She slid in neutral suit, neutral smile eyes like calculators. Cassidy had asked to see her in the glass-walled conference room that overlooked Elliott Bay. Clara closed the door behind her and stood as if the floor might ask questions. "You wanted to see me, Ms. Rhodes." Cassidy offered the envelope. A gesture. 3 days, no limits. Do what you want, no reporting required. Clara didn't touch it. Is there a KPI you're not mentioning? Nome preferred vendor list. Nome philanthropic vertical you'd like me to emphasize. No. Clara took the envelope at last, weighing it like a quiz she already knew how to ace. Then I assume the real deliverable is judgment. Assume less, Cassidy said. Discover more. Clara's mouth tilted. In my experience, if a room has mirrors, someone is testing you. And in my experience, Cassidy said, people look more honest when they stop looking at themselves. Clara slid the card into her folio. 3 days is enough to build a runway. For what? Cassidy asked. For whatever I decide should take off. She hesitated, just a heartbeat. Thank you. For what? Cassidy asked again. For trusting me to show you who I am, Clara said, and she left as if she'd already edited the scene. Marcus's text arrived the moment the door clicked. Clara received. Interprets as test. She would, Cassidy replied. Bianca Torres met Marcus on the loading dock, hard hat over perfect hair, walking a floor plan like a runway. Trucks beeped, riggers shouted. Bianca smiled at chaos the way a conductor smiles at an orchestra tuning. Gorgeous, she said, taking the envelope as if it were a prop she'd requested. 3 days. No ceiling. Marcus, that's not a budget. That's a stage. It's a gift, he said. She tapped the card against the plan. Beauty is a public service. You think donors open their wallets for spreadsheets. They open them for a feeling, or they drown in one, he said. Bianca laughed. Cynicism is a poor decorator. She twirled the card between 2 fingers. Give me 72 hours and I'll make this city believe generosity is fashionable. Isn't it? Marcus asked. She paused long enough to be interesting. Some people do the right thing because it's right. The rest need lighting. Be careful, Marcus said. Lighting also casts shadows. She winked. I never stand where the shadows fall. Bianca received, he texted. Brilliant theatrical, already pitching the city to itself. Cassidy's reply came fast. Noted. The 4th envelope warmed in Cassidy's hand like a coin with history. She didn't send Marcus. She took the elevator alone. The basement corridor smelled like fresh lemons and old floors. Machines hummed. Somewhere a radio murmured a Motown hook. She found Silas Boone by a utility sink, sleeves rolled, rinsing out a cloth with one hand while he held a small lunchbox with the other. A girl sat on an upturned crate beside him, swing-kicking the air and braiding a stuffed rabbit's ear. You're in a no-visitor zone, ma'am, Silas said without turning. His voice held tired kindness. But if you're lost, I can point you toward the lobby. I live in the lobby, Cassidy said. He looked up. Recognition flickered. He wiped his hand on a towel and nodded. Ms. Rhodes, Mr. Boone, she said. The little girl hopped down. Are you the lady from the giant picture upstairs? That unfortunate photo, Cassidy said, is mine. I'm Lila, the girl announced. This is Clover. She likes elevators. Does Clover like paperwork? Cassidy asked dryly. I brought some. Silas lifted a brow. Paperwork. She held out the envelope. A small experiment. 3 days. No limit. Do what you want. No deliverables, no strings. He didn't take it. I clean your floors, Ms. Rhodes. I know the difference between a gift and a tripwire. If it were a tripwire, Mr. Boone, she said I wouldn't bring it to you in person. His gaze searched hers the way a mechanic listens to an engine patient precise. What's the catch, you'll be seen, Cassidy said. That's the only thing money can't help with. Lila leaned in. We could buy cupcakes for the kids at St. Mary's Youth Home, she said earnestly. They don't even have sprinkles sometimes. Silas smiled small and unguarded. We could bug. Cassidy felt something shift inside her like a locked screen waking. St. Mary's, she repeated. You volunteer. When I can, he said. Somebody did for me once. Silas finally took the envelope, turning it over like an instrument he hadn't used before. 3 days, you said? 72 hours? Starting when you activate the card. She nodded at Lila's lunchbox. That looks heavier than it should. It's got courage in it, Lila said. And 2 PB&Js. He smiled again. Mostly PB&Js. Cassidy found herself smiling back. It felt out of practice and better for it. There's a short release to sign, she said, passing a clipboard. You acknowledge it's a gift and that we can freeze the card if, say, Vegas calls your name. Vegas doesn't know I exist, Silas said, skimming the form. I'm not offended. He signed. His handwriting was neat, the kind that says someone taught you to take your time. Lila added a drawing a rabbit with a crown and slid it across. For your fridge, she told Cassidy. I don't have magnets, Cassidy said. You have a fridge, though, Lila asked, eyes huge. Rumor says yes, Cassidy answered. Lila sighed with relief. Good. Imagine being that rich and eating only at the cafe forever. Silas cleared his throat, embarrassed. Sorry, she narrates. It's helpful, Cassidy said. Not enough people do. He tucked the card away, suddenly serious. If I accept this, it means I'm part of something I don't fully understand. It means, she said quietly, that for 3 days you won't have to choose between good and affordable. Something in his posture softened barely. That's a mean choice to live with. I know, she said. For a moment they stood in the lemon-bright corridor, 3 people and a stuffed rabbit, the hum of machines carrying their silence. Thank you, Silas said at last. I can't promise anything impressive. I didn't ask for impressive, Cassidy said. I asked for true. He nodded. True, I can do. As she turned to go, Lila called after her. Ms. Rhodes. Yes, Clover says you should try sprinkles too. I'll add it to my calendar, Cassidy said, and meant it more than she meant most calendar entries. Back upstairs, Marcus had a dashboard open, 4 small tiles, 4 cards idling like engines. All recipients activated, he said, will get transaction pings in real time. What are the odds, he asked softly, that any of them will surprise you? They already did, Cassidy said, watching the blank screen as if it were a horizon. Now, I want the numbers to tell me a story the cameras never do. A ping. Vanessa. A high-end boutique. Another ping. A helicopter tour company. Bianca, venue retainer lighting vendor, floral wholesaler. Clara, a menswear store, then a networking club fee. Cassidy's mouth tilted. Of course she'd buy a room before buying a dress. Then nothing for a beat. 2 beats, and then St. Mary's Youth Home, bulk groceries, another party supplies, a third discount craft store, and seconds later a small purchase that made Cassidy bite back a laugh, corner bakery cupcakes. Note extra sprinkles. Marcus glanced up. Well, Cassidy didn't take her eyes off the screen. Let's see where the cupcakes go. She closed her hand around the rabbit drawing in her pocket. It crinkled like a promise. The first ping hit Cassidy's dashboard before the espresso cooled. We're live, Marcus said, sliding into the chair across from her. The glass of her office reflected blue from the bay and green from a grid of 4 tiny tiles, 1 for each black card. Money's moving. Let's hear the story, it tells, Cassidy replied. Numbers are plain, motives are messy. Another ping. Vanessa Cole, Lumen Atelier, $14.980. Dresses, obviously, then 2 more. Skyline Heli Tours, $7 $200. Skyline Heli Tours, add-on media package, what $100. Marcus exhaled through his nose. She didn't even stretch first. Cassidy allowed a dry half-smile. Vanity warms up faster than virtue. Vanessa's world was angles and approval. At Lumen Atelier, she leaned toward a mirror the size of a confession and tried on a silver column that obeyed gravity only when it felt like it. Do you have anything sparklier? She asked the sales associate. The woman, trained to flatter and move inventory, gestured to a rack of dresses, whispering price tags. This one photographs like a promise. Vanessa swiped the black card with a flourish phone set to record. Angels, we invest in art, not outfits. But yes, sometimes art has a slit. In the doorway, her friend held her camera steady. Caption: Vanessa struck a pose. When you're raising awareness, raise it in a dress that can carry the weight. She blew a kiss. We make generosity look good. 30 minutes later, she stood at the helipad, hair roped high, the city a spread of glass and will beneath her. Gear up, the pilot said. Quick question, Vanessa called, tipping down her shades. Confetti from the air legal or just fun? Illegal, the pilot said. Also terrible for birds. We'll do rose petals, Vanessa said without missing a beat. Compostable, tasteful. Tag me. Her phone vibrated. A DM from a luxury brand saw the clip. Let's talk partnership. Vanessa smiled at the sky. Attention isn't bought, she murmured to herself. It's harvested. Clara's tile pulsed next. Clara Jensen, Atelier Barrow, 2380. Suits, Clara Jensen, Fountain Club, initiation fee, $6,000. Clara Jensen, Fountain Club, membership dues, equal 250. Cassidy cocked a brow. A room, she said softly. She just bought herself a room. Marcus shrugged. Some doors open for a price. The rest open for a name. Clara's building a name. At Atelier Barrow, the tailor tugged at Clara's sleeve with surgical focus. You're a narrow notch lapel, he said, and 2 centimeters off the hem. You don't need a new body. You need a better outline. Outline is destiny, Clara said. People listen to certainty, not sentences. You a lawyer? He asked. I'm what the next room needs me to be, she replied. Do you have a suit that reads, I've stopped asking for permission? He smiled. We have one that reads, You should have asked me sooner. Clara's phone buzzed. An email from the Fountain Club welcome. Your access begins today. Lounge available 7 days a week. Private salon by request. She filed it like a seed she intended to plant in concrete. When she signed the charge, the tailor paused. Unlimited, he said, seeing the card. Nice trick. Tool. Clara corrected, eyes cold bright. Tricks are for people who fear substance. As she left, she rehearsed her next conversation. Cassidy, here's a roster of 5 board members I chatted with last night. No ask, just equity. Timing would be everything. She wouldn't waste this on shoes. Rooms wrote checks to people they recognized. Before they recognized you, they recognized your jacket. Bianca's tile flared like a stage cue. Bianca Torres. Lightworks Design. 12,700 deposit. Bianca Torres. Evergreen Florals. 9,200 deposit. Bianca Torres. Capital Venue. Hold. $18,000 retainer. The cadence of a woman turning air into atmosphere. On the loading dock, Bianca balanced a hard hat on good hair and paced a rectangle painted in her mind. Think pulse, she told the lighting director over speakerphone. I want a breathing wall, soft whites that rise when testimonials hit. We'll cue scent, citrus, and cedar, so generosity smells like a fresh start. Cost less than apathy, she said. More than a shrug. She clicked to another line. Evergreen. I need arrangements that don't look like they're trying. Garden, not gala. If the flowers whisper, people lean in. And your anchor, the florist asked? Story, Bianca said. Always story. She hung up and wrote a note to herself. Find a face, not a logo. People fund faces. Bianca loved this part, taking a city's short attention span and stretching it into wonder. She also knew wonder was a jealous god. It needed sacrifice. Sleep, usually. The 4th tile stayed quiet long enough for doubt to nibble. Then Silas Boone, Wholesale Mart, 612.34. Silas Boone, Party Planet, 93.12. Silas Boone, Dollar Depot, 48.76. Silas Boone, Big Banner, 33.90. Silas Boone, Craft and Care, 86.05, a beat. Silas Boone, City Van Rentals, 129.00 day rate. Plus insurance. Marcus leaned in. That's balloons bulk, hot dogs, paper plates, face paint brushes, construction paper butcher's twine, twinkle lights. And a van, Cassidy said. He's moving something. Or someone, Marcus replied. Keep reading. At Wholesale Mart, a clerk scanned a pallet of hot dogs with the weariness of a man who didn't want to ask questions and the curiosity of one who would anyway. You throwing a block party, he said. Silas lifted the corner of a box checking dates. Something like that. You got a grill big enough for 200? The clerk asked. A reason to gather is half the meal, Silas said. We'll figure out the heat. Lila peered over the cart. Do sprinkles come in buckets? The clerk grinned. Today they do. At Party Planet, Lila weighed 2 bags of balloons in her hands like justice. Rainbow or stars? Dad, which one says welcome to someone who hasn't heard that in a while? Rainbow says welcome. Stars say stay a while. Lila considered. Both. At the craft store, a teenage cashier rang up face paint and brushes, then squinted at the total. I can swing my employee discount. My aunt runs a shelter, not St. Mary's, but same kind of deal. These paints last longer if you add a drop of baby oil. Silas shook his head. You keep your discount for someone who needs the margin to make rent. But thanks for the tip. Then at least take a coupon, she insisted, sliding one over like contraband. It expires today. He took it. I won't tell if you won't. In the parking lot, Silas strapped the boxes into the back of a rented van with the care of a man who had lost too many things that weren't supposed to move. Lila climbed into the passenger seat, buckled herself, and set Clover the rabbit on the dashboard like a hood ornament. Where to? She asked. First stop. Silas checked the time. St. Mary's. If they say yes, we throw the kind of Saturday that makes Sunday jealous. Layla nodded solemnly. Everybody needs a day that proves the calendar can be kind. Silas put the van in gear. Then let's build one. Back in the tower, Cassidy watched the list unfurl. Hot dogs, she said, not quite a question. 260 pounds of ice, Marcus added. Paper crowns, washable markers, glitter, but thank God the kind that says biodegradable. She pictured Silas's hands catching those champagne flutes last night, the soft clink of his keys. If money is a microphone, she said his accent is kindness. Careful, Marcus said gently. One purchase list doesn't redeem a man, and one helicopter doesn't damn a woman. Cassidy agreed. This isn't a verdict. It's a first sentence. Her phone buzzed. Legal. If these purchases suggest a public event, please ensure permits. Liability. Cassidy typed private property St. Mary's Youth Home should be covered. Send waiver language. Marcus kept scanning. There it is, he said, tapping the screen. Silas Boone, St. Mary's Youth Home, donation. Hold. 0.00, pending call. He's asking permission, Cassidy murmured. Integrity is a slow elevator, Marcus said. Takes longer. Opens on the right floor. She smirked. Put that on a mug. Another ping. Silas Boone, Corner Bakery, 4360. Note cupcakes extra sprinkles. Immediately after Silas Boone, Dollar Depot, 12 Duarts. Pack of clown noses. Marcus lifted an eyebrow. He's either planning a party or a very strange coup. Either way, Cassidy said he's not shopping for applause. She stood, restless energy moving through her like current. I want eyes on this. Quietly. No cameras. No spectacle. You're going in person, Marcus guessed. I'm not letting the numbers have all the fun, she replied. She slipped the rabbit drawing from her blazer pocket, the one Lila had given her, and smoothed its crumpled crown. Besides, someone invited me to try sprinkles. Marcus nodded. I'll keep monitoring, and I'll draft the waiver for St. Mary's. Cassidy headed for the elevator. If anyone calls, tell them I'm out learning a language. What language is that, he asked. The one money can't speak, she said, and the doors slid shut. On the screen, the tiles kept blinking. Vanessa booking a videographer for sunset. Clara reserving a table for 2 with a board member, Bianca. Paying a retainer for a children's choir, each pattern shouting its logic, and then a quiet line that didn't shout at all. Silas Boone, St. Mary's Youth Home, party permit insurance, $75. 80 earns. Marcus leaned back surprised and a little moved. He typed the update to Cassidy without overthinking it. He bought insurance. Cassidy's reply was immediate. Then maybe he's not planning a party. Maybe he's planning to keep people safe. She stepped out into the bright morning, a city beginning again, and asked the question out loud that had already become a refrain. "What do you do with 200 hot dogs, Mr. Boone?" The answer waited a few neighborhoods away under a string of lights that hadn't been hung yet. The van door rolled open, and a small carnival spilled onto the curb of St. Mary's Youth Home. Strings of twinkle lights, a cooler stacked with ice banners rolled like maps to a gentler country. Silas hopped down first, checked the curb ramp, and offered his palm to Lila as if the ground might shift without warning. "Feet," he said, smiling. "Then dreams." "Copy." Lila chirped, passing him, Clover the rabbit like a lieutenant handing over a flag. "Director Park said we could use the courtyard if we don't block the fire exit and if we ask about allergies." "We will," Silas said. "All joy, no ER." The glass entrance hissed. Helen Park, the director 40-something running on compassion and clipboards, stepped out with a counselor, Luis Ramirez, whose job title could have been calm. "Morning," Mr. Boone Park said. "I'm told you brought enough hot dogs to feed a small state." "Or a big appetite," Silas said. He held up a binder. "Insurance certificate, waiver language you sent, and a printed list of ingredients. The cupcakes are nut-free. Sprinkles have D-Red 40. I flagged it." Park took the binder impressed, despite herself. "You came prepared." "Gifts should be lighter than they land," he said quietly. Luis lifted the cooler with the practiced grace of a former soccer player. "Grill's out back by the garden. We've got hand-wash stations ready and a first aid kit." Lila tugged Park's sleeve. "May I be official sprinkle officer?" Park knelt so their eyes met. "You may be whatever the day needs. Today it needs bright." Behind the hedges, a woman in a simple coat stood on the sidewalk, mostly hidden by a maple that hadn't decided whether to keep its leaves. Cassidy had left her driver 3 blocks away and walked the rest sunglasses on clutch light. She wasn't here to be seen. She was here to look. "Don't get caught," she muttered to herself, feeling ridiculous for narrating, and then she didn't move for a long time. The courtyard turned into a sketch that kept choosing color. Lila hung the banner with Luis, who let her stand on his shoulder for the last corner. The letters unfurled, "You belong here." Kids trickled out 2 by 2, wary, first, then curious. A little boy with a superhero t-shirt halted in front of Silas, gaze fixed on the mountain of balloons. "Are those for us?" he asked. Silas crouched to eye level. "I brought air. You bring the laughs. Deal." The boy pressed his lips together to hide a smile. "That's a weird deal." "The best ones are," Silas said, and he handed him a pump like a scepter. Cassidy, watching, realized something she'd never noticed about laughter. It has a different timbre when it's surprised by kindness. Silas fired the grill with the concentration of a man defusing boredom. Rule 1, he told Luis Char, is flavor until it's apology. "Good rule," Luis said, flipping a bun. "What's Rule 2? Give the first plate to the kid who hangs back. It tells them you saw them." Kids lined up, hesitant choreography breaking into a line as neat as new notebooks. Lila floated along with a tray of cupcakes like a small planet with sprinkles for stars. Silas worked without hurry and also without waste. Ketchup bottle tucked in his elbow tongs like chopsticks, his feet set as if standing made him reliable. "You want yellow or red?" he asked a girl with braids. She blinked. "What's the difference?" "One is sunshine you can eat," he said. "The other is permission to lick your fingers." "Both," she whispered. "An artist," he declared, and crowned her hot dog accordingly. A balloon popped near the herb garden. 2 kids jumped. A third burst into giggles so contagious the rosemary shook with it. Silas pinched a fresh balloon and leaned down to Lila. "Ready for the big reveal?" She nodded solemnly. "Activate clown protocol." Silas slipped on a red nose and an oversized bow tie Lila had made from butcher paper and tape. The effect was immediate. The courtyard wobbled with laughter. He did a slow pratfall that turned into a roll and popped up with jazz hands that earned him sincere applause. He committed the way he committed to everything that mattered. If you broke your dignity, break it into confetti. Cassidy's smile arrived before she could stop it. A girl around 7 scraped a knee chasing a balloon and sat hard sorrow already swelling in her eyes. Silas saw it from 10 feet. The grill hissed behind him. He turned the flame down and crossed. "Okay," he said softly, kneeling. "Let me see the brave." She swiped at her cheek. "It's stinging." He removed the red nose, pocketed the bow, and made seriousness feel safe. "My mother taught me an old secret," he murmured. "Every scrape has a switch. If we clean it, press the switch and tell it 3 nice things, it heals faster. That's not science," she sniffed. "Maybe," he said. "Maybe it's manners." He cleaned the scrape with a wipe dabbed antiseptic and found a bandage with tiny rockets from a box Lila had decorated. "Switch." He pressed the bandage. "Now, 3 nice things. I'll start. 1. You're sitting up straighter than most senators." "What's a senator?" she asked, intrigued despite the tears. "Someone who should sit up straighter," he said. 2. That shirt is braver than I am. I've never worn that much pink." She giggled. 3. You came to me for help. Brave people ask. He offered his palm. "Now you. Tell your knee 3 nice things." She whispered them into the bandage like a prayer only she needed to hear. The courtyard kept breathing around them, sizzle laughter balloons thudding gently against the sky. Cassidy stood very still behind her maple. Money had taught her many ways to fix things. None looked like this. Luis relit a stern sterno with a flourish and grinned at Silas. "You miss your calling, I'm in it," Silas said. "Most of the world is spill and mop. Sometimes you just switch the order." Park checked the serving table, jotting notes on a clipboard out of habit. "You even brought vegan dogs," she said. "That's a fight. I didn't know I needed someone to win today. Everybody eats at a table that says, 'Welcome,'" Silas answered. "It's the only rule I will argue for at volume." The line thinned. The courtyard shifted from hunger to play. "Balloon swords," Silas announced. A chorus, "Yes." He twisted his fingers, working muscle memory Lila had taught him from 1,000 YouTube mishaps. The first sword looked like a question mark. The second looked like a sword that had learned to listen. By the third, he was a man handing courage to children in a shape they understood. "Knight you," he told a boy in a faded hoodie. "Sir sticks a lot. I'm not a sir," the boy said, chin lifting. Then, "Rise, Captain. Sticks a lot," Silas replied. "Captain, outrank, sir." The boy's grin arrived like sunrise. Cassidy moved a few steps closer beneath the pretense of checking a text until she stood at the waist-high fence. A small boy looked over and squinted. "Are you a parent?" "Not today," she said. "You look like the people who point at charts," he said frankly. "I do," she admitted, "but sometimes I like pointing at balloons." He considered this. "You can come in if you wash your hands. Ms. Park says kindness is clean." Cassidy laughed, then surprised herself by following him to the sanitizer pump. She used it like a visitor to a church uses water, reverend, even if she didn't know the ritual. Park glanced up startled then, more so when she recognized the visitor. "Miss Rhodes," she said softly, extending a hand. "We didn't expect I wasn't invited," Cassidy said with a small shrug. "I'm trespassing on a good idea." Park's eyes gentled. Then, trespass. Just don't offer money yet. Let them have today. "I brought nothing but hands," Cassidy said. "And maybe sprinkles." Good Park smiled. "We're rich in sprinkles." She gave Cassidy a job that didn't look like a job, tie ribbons to the fence so the courtyard looked like a promise kept. Cassidy tied awkward first, then better. Money couldn't teach you knots. Children did. Silas noticed her then. No sunglasses can hide a presence like hers. He didn't startle. He lifted his chin like a salute you could miss if you wanted to. "Ms. Rhodes," he called lightly. "We're violating a number of culinary best practices, such as joy before vegetables," he said. I'll notify the board, she deadpanned. Do he said, and turned another balloon into a crown. Lila glided up with cupcakes and the authority of a judge. 1 per kid until seconds. Grown-ups after. Even the very rich kind. Cassidy grinned. Understood, officer. Lila peered at her. You came. I did, Cassidy said. Clover says you kept your sprinkles promise. I did that too. Good, Lila said. Promises are just future memories. If you break them, you break a memory that didn't get a chance. Who taught you that? Cassidy asked. Dad Lila answered like it was obvious. For a long minute, Cassidy could not speak. The day rearranged her interior furniture without asking permission. Luis cued a small Bluetooth speaker. Motown sutured the afternoon together. A boy danced like Joy had hips. Park leaned on her clipboard arms, crossed a queen, satisfied with the state of her small kingdom. Silas set down the tongs and looked over the courtyard with a mechanic's eye and a father's inventory. Everybody fed, he called. Yes, the kids sang back. Everybody seen, he asked. Park's voice matched his. Yes. Silas blew a gentle kazoo flourish through his clown nose. Then we did the hard work. Cassidy stepped back to the fence as the sun slid a gold edge across the buildings beyond. She typed a brief text to Marcus because she didn't trust her voice to carry sense. You were right. Integrity is a slow elevator. Marcus replied 2 dots, and then it always opens on the right floor. Cassidy slipped the phone away and stood there as the world she thought she understood took a deep breath and changed shape. She hadn't intended to help. She hadn't intended to feel. But some rooms refuse to let you be only what you brought with you. Ms. Rhodes Silas said a few feet away, now face half clown, half man. You want a sword or a crown? What do you recommend? For leaders, he asked. A crown. For learners. A sword. She measured him with a gaze that had closed deals and cut checks. Give me a learner's sword, she said. He nodded, twisted a long balloon with quick, sure turns, and placed the looped handle in her hand. Careful, he said. It's sharp, where pride gets in the way. Cassidy laughed, the kind that startles you because it's honest, and the courtyard recorded it like a good sound. When she left an hour later, she walked past the maple and felt the oddest instinct to thank it for being a witness. She didn't, but she did glance back once more. Silas was at the sink washing tongs. Layla was handing out last cupcakes. The banner said, You belong here, and for the first time in too many seasons, Cassidy wondered what it would take for those words to be true, someplace with her name on the deed. She had built empires. She had never thrown a party that could heal a knee. What do you call this? She asked the sky. No answer came, just the feeling that some tests work both ways. Coffee tastes better when it isn't being watched. Silas said it as he held open the door to a small corner diner in Belltown, the kind with a neon open sign that refuses to quit and a bell that rings like it believes in strangers. Cassidy paused under the doorway, half a smile caught between her and the morning. I'm the one who called, she said. If anyone's being watched, it's me. Fair, he said. But the coffee here doesn't know your last name. That helps. They chose a booth by the window. Vinyl cushions sighed. A server with a pencil behind her ear poured without asking. Cream sugar, she offered. Both, Cassidy said, surprising herself. Black Silas said. Cup, hot life, lukewarm. The server laughed. It'll improve at the second cup, she promised, and moved on. Cassidy wrapped her fingers around the mug as if warmth were a valid argument. Before we start, she said, I need to clear the smoke. Yesterday wasn't a publicity stunt. I didn't bring cameras. I brought curiosity. Silas nodded, patient. And a card. And a card she conceded. If that felt like a tripwire, I'm sorry. It felt like a test, he said. But some tests don't grade you. They tell you what hurts. Did it hurt? He looked at the window where a bus exhaled and a woman in a blue coat hurried by with a plant in her arms like a newborn. I wasn't worried about failing, he said. I was worried about teaching my kid the wrong lesson. What's the right one? That. Money's a tool, not a mirror, he said softly. Hold it too close to your face and you stop seeing anything except yourself. Cassidy sat back. In my world, she said, money is a magnifying glass. It makes every pore public. Maybe that's why the kids yesterday liked you, he said. You washed your hands before you touched their day. She laughed, low and honest. That was Lila's rule. Leela has good rules, he said. She thinks sprinkles are a food group. Clover agreed, Cassidy replied. The rabbit is persuasive. Silas's mouth curved. She got that from her mother. He said it simply. The booth changed temperature. Tell me about her, Cassidy said. He took a breath that held both memory and manners. June, he said. Hair the color of wheat before it's ready. Hands that could fix anything except the one thing that broke. He turned the mug once in its saucer. We were 22 and dumb enough to be brave. She could listen better than I could speak. I was a mechanic at a neighborhood shop. She took night classes and brought me library books with grease on the edges. His smile tilted. We had Lila, and the world got new windows. What happened? Cassidy asked, voice like a seatbelt. The rain, he said, and someone who thought they could beat a yellow light. They beat it. They didn't beat the intersection. He cleared his throat carefully the way you do when words might slip. That was 6 years ago. Lila was 2. People came with food and sentences. Time heals. She's in a better place. At least you have your daughter. Time didn't heal. It taught. And my daughter wasn't, at least. She was a universe I had to learn to navigate without a map. Cassidy's fingers tightened on the mug. I'm sorry. Thank you, he said. There's no receipt for grief. But the words help. How did you... Go on. She hated how thin it sounded and offered it anyway. He looked at her then, steady and kind. You don't go on, he said. You go with. Lost doesn't leave. It learns to ride shotgun. He tapped his keys on the table, 3 keys and a worn-out fob. I kept 2 jobs for a while. Day shift at the shop, night shift cleaning, daycare, a neighbor who believed in casseroles and borrowed time. One day, I realized the shop looked at me with pity, and the building looked at me with purpose. So I kept the building. And the card, Cassidy asked. You could have bought anything. I bought time, he said. Hot dogs and face paint that buy a few hours where a kid forgets to be careful. He took a sip and winced. Still not the second cup. You could have bought for yourself, she said. He shrugged. Kids are loud about what they need. Grown-ups whisper. Yesterday was a day for listening to the loud. Cassidy watched the steam lift from her coffee like a small rehearsal for disappearing. Yesterday did something to me, she admitted. My job is making big things happen in big rooms. But I stood under a banner that said, You belong here, and realized I don't remember the last time I believed those words about my own house. This is going to sound like a janitor talking, Silas said, because it is. Belonging isn't a chandelier. It's a coat hook. People know they belong when they have somewhere to hang what they carry. That's a line, Cassidy said, half smiling. I might steal it. Steal it and build hooks, he said. Then I'll forgive you. The server slid a plate between them without asking 2 slices of pie that looked like apology and promise. On the house, she said, You're doing the faces like folks who need sugar. Cassidy blinked. We must be loud. You're human, the server said. Like that settled the bill and left. Silas glanced at the pie. Lila would tell me to let you have the bigger slice. Lila's very wise, Cassidy said, nudging the larger piece toward him. Then she'd tell me to insist you take it, he countered. They split them like a treaty. Cassidy set down her fork. I owe you candor, she said. This card thing, I told myself it was about curiosity. It was also about control. I'm tired of people pretending near me. I wanted a way to make the pretending stop. Money doesn't stop pretending, he said. It just makes bad acting expensive. She winced and nodded. I asked Marcus if this would explode. He said yes. Silas smiled. Then he's honest. Honest people should be more expensive, by the way. Pay them like you pay for lighting. I do, she said. At least the ones I've learned to see." She took a breath. "It didn't occur to me that giving you a card might feel like handing you a trap." "It didn't," he said. "It felt like handing me a mirror. I just made sure it faced the right way. Toward St. Mary's," she said. "Toward anyone who's been told their needs are a favor," he said. "Food isn't a favor. Joy isn't either. They're both maintenance. You speak like a man who fixes things for a living," she said. "I fix what people step on," he said. "Sometimes that's a spill. Sometimes it's a story." Cassidy let that land. "Why did you invite me in?" she asked. "Lila told me to wash my hands and I did. But you could have kept me on the fence." "You didn't come with a camera," he said simply. "You came with pockets. People who come with pockets usually plan to carry something out. You came to carry something in." Heat rose to her face, an emotion she recognized as gratitude pretending to be embarrassment. "I didn't do much." "You did the hard part," he said. "You let them not need you." They ate in the silence of two people not racing the clock for once. "You're not what I expected," Cassidy said finally. He lifted a brow. "What did you expect a man who resents me?" she said. "Or a man who worships me? It's hard to land anywhere between when I pay your building's invoices. I don't worship people," he said. "And resentment is heavy. I have a kid. I carry only what I must." "What do you carry?" she asked. He looked at his keys again. "Responsibility," he said. "Rent. The memory of June that doesn't ask me to be less happy in order to keep her important." He paused. "And Lila's faith that the world isn't a machine built to keep us out." Cassidy's voice dropped. "I wish I had that faith." "You do," he said. "You just store it where auditors can't find it." She laughed soft. "Spoken like a man who understands my calendar. I understand people who wear watches that cost a car," he said. "They don't buy time. They buy reminders." She watched him a long moment. "If you could buy anything today, anything at all, what would it be?" He didn't look away. "A day where my daughter learned something kind about the world that I didn't have to teach her." Cassidy swallowed. "That's not for sale." "Right," he said. "But you can stock the shelves." She sat up, a quiet decision forming at the edge of her voice. "I can't fix yesterday's rain," she said, "but I can change some weather." "Careful," he said, smiling. "I hear climate metaphors are addictive." "I'll risk it," she said. "One more confession, and then I'll let you get to work. I recognized you last night at the gala. You caught 2 flutes before they hit the floor and talked a kid out of quitting. You didn't know I could see you." "I don't do it for the balcony," he said. "I know," she said. "That's why I asked for coffee." He lifted his cup in a small toast. "To sprinkles that don't run out. To hot dogs that don't apologize," she added. They clinked ceramic, and the bell above the door rang as if to bless the joke. When they stepped outside, Seattle had decided on sun. A bus sighed by. Someone argued softly with a parking meter. A dog led a human toward a tree with purpose. Normal, as holy as any hymn. Cassidy reached into her coat and produced a folded paper. "I owe you something," she said. She unfolded Lila's drawing the rabbit with the crown and held it out. "I kept it safe. It's too important for my pockets." Silas accepted it gently as if paper could bruise. "Thank you. And Silas?" "Yeah. I don't have much," she said, choosing the line on purpose, "but I can promise you this. Lila will grow up knowing happiness doesn't need a black card. If I can help stock those shelves, ask." He watched her the way a mechanic listens to a sound to see if it rings true. "I'll hold you to that," he said. "Please do." He turned to go, then reconsidered. "One more thing," he said. "The experiment. If you're going to keep doing it, remember the slow elevator." "I will," she said. "And Silas." "Yeah. Thank you for letting me be a learner." He nodded toward an invisible sword. "Careful," he said. "It's sharp where pride gets in the way." "Then I'll keep both hands on the handle," she said, and the city overhearing quietly agreed to be kinder for the next few blocks. "If you wanted to be seen, Mr. Boone Clara said there are subtler ways than 200 hot dogs." Silas Boone paused in the doorway of the glass-walled conference room. He had come because Marcus texted about a quick form the insurance writer St. Mary's requested after yesterday. He wasn't expecting an audience. Vanessa, in a mirror-bright suit, Bianca with a tube of concept boards under her arm, Clara poised behind a laptop that looked like it might grade the room. Cassidy sat at the head of the table, unreadable. Marcus stood at the side, a notepad and the kind of calm that keeps boats from capsizing. The bay glittered beyond the windows, but the temperature in the room was all air conditioning and posture. "Subtle doesn't always reach kids," Silas answered, setting a manila envelope on the table for Marcus. "They don't hide very well when they're hungry." Vanessa crossed her legs phone, already tilted to capture light. "I mean, cute," she said. "Wholesome. But spectacle is a strategy. If you're trying to impress the boss, there are better producers than Party Planet." Silas looked at her kind and direct. "If I were trying to impress my boss, he said I'd have bought my daughter a piano she can't afford instead of paints other kids could use." A flicker crossed Cassidy's face, recognition, then something like relief. Vanessa scoffed lightly, but the dig landed. Bianca set her tube down and slid out a render-long table's low floral, a stage with clean lines. "There's a reason we make giving feel like a night to remember," she said. "Nights like that open checkbooks. Your pop-up was sweet. It's also a one-day story. Some days, Silas said, are important enough to earn their own short story." He smiled, small and untroubled. "Not every good thing has to be a franchise." Clara clicked her laptop awake. A slide appeared, columns, bullet points, the confidence of font. "We're all on the same page about outcomes," she said briskly. "Optics matter. Ms. Rhodes's brand matters. Public generosity has to scale." She folded her hands. "To scale, it has to be strategy. Emotion is a great opener. It's a poor operator." Silas nodded. "Strategy pays the rent," he said. "Emotion turns on the lights." "I'm not against either. I just won't confuse them." "Clarify," Cassidy said softly. It wasn't a command. It was a door. Silas rested his palms on the back of an empty chair. "I clean buildings," he said. "If a pipe bursts, you don't post about towels, you turn off the water and call a plumber. Yesterday was a burst. We didn't need a stage or a hashtag. We needed lunch and laughter and bandages with rockets on them." He lifted a brow, almost apologetic. "I brought towels." Clara's smile thinned. "And a clown knows. If dignity doesn't laugh first, it ends up laughing last," he said. "The kids know that. They're experts in rooms that watch them more than welcome them." Vanessa made a small show of checking her notifications. Again, adorable. "But I'm talking reach. I booked a helicopter, a videographer, 2 fashion houses, and secured a partnership conversation by noon. That's leverage. I can make giving trend." "Trend and impact aren't married," Marcus said mildly. "Sometimes they don't even date." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "Easy to say from payroll." Cassidy didn't flinch. "Numbers?" she asked. Vanessa brightened. "Done." She flipped her phone to face the table. Clips under perfect lighting, captions in a font that smiled even when it didn't mean it. "Impressions shares the whole engagement tree. By end of week, we build a funnel toward my Do Good Look Good capsule, 10% to charity." "Which charity?" Marcus asked. Vanessa hesitated a beat. "The point is the funnel. The point," Bianca slid her second board forward, "is to channel attention into action. This," she tapped the rendering, "is a dock we can build. Imagine low-cost ticketing sponsors paying for the heavy-lift donor wall that doesn't look like a donor wall." "It's good," Cassidy said. She meant it. Bianca was talented. The board looked like an evening people would talk about in cars on the way home. "We can host at the Capitol." Bianca continued. "I've already held the date. Children's choir for the opener. Real stories, not pity reels. Make generosity feel like belonging in a room that most people assume belongs to someone else." Silas nodded. "That part I like." Bianca glanced up, surprised to be agreed with. "Thank you," she said, wary of the trap praise sometimes hides. Clara steepled fingers. "So, we have options," she said. 1. We invest in a public plan that aligns with Ms. Rhodes' position and scale. 2. We applaud Mr. Boone's pop-up and move on. 3. We leverage both if he's willing to take direction. All eyes moved to Cassidy. The room held its breath the way rooms do when money is about to choose. Cassidy didn't rush. She watched Silas watch the bay, how he didn't fidget when people stared, how he didn't fill silence with borrowed lines. "Mr. Boone," she said finally, "what would you do if I handed you the lighting, the stage, the crew, and told you to plan the next right day?" He blinked, not at the offer but at the trust inside it. "I'd ask the kids first," he said. "Then I'd ask Ms. Park what actually breaks between big nights. Heat, homework, transportation. We fix those before we make speeches." He met her eyes. "I'd try to build a day that survives the morning after." Bianca's voice softened a fraction. "And if we helped with the room, then we use the room to hand out keys," he said. "Not selfies." Vanessa sighed theatrically. "This is turning into a TED Talk about feelings." "Feelings pay," Clara said crisply. "Stop dismissing the lever because the fulcrum is soft." "Ladies," Marcus interjected, "this can be theater and plumbing. But if we're choosing the order, the leak comes first." Cassidy's mouth tilted. "Put that on a mug," she murmured, and then she turned back to Silas. "They think you're angling for my approval," she said, slicing to the bone, not to wound, but to remove the splinter. "If I wanted your approval," he said, "I'd learn your favorite wine and pretend to like it." A laugh escaped her before she could stop it. "That's a terrible strategy. My favorite wine tastes like ambition." "Then I'd drink water," he said. "Ambition has a dehydration problem." Bianca's smile surprised even Bianca. Light fell differently on the table. Vanessa, unwilling to cede ground, lowered her voice to something that sounded like concern. "Look," she said to Cassidy, "I get it. He's refreshing. But you need professionals. Narrative is fragile. One wrong move and compassion curdles into mockery." Silas didn't bristle. "She's right," he said. "Professionals matter. Nobody should be winging wiring or press. But if the only people at the switchboard are the ones who already own the building, the lights don't change." Clara shut her laptop with a precise click. "Let's not confuse a hobby with a plan." Silas tilted his head polite. "Let's not confuse a plan with a cure." The room went still. The sentence did what good sentences do. It asked everyone to stand a little straighter around the truth. Cassidy folded her hands. "Clara, Bianca, Vanessa," she said evenly, "this is not a pageant. It's a decision about how we keep faith with people we claim to help." "We keep faith by building systems," Clara replied. "And keeping receipts," Marcus added. "We keep faith by building rooms people actually want to enter," Bianca said. "We keep faith," Silas said, "by showing up when nobody's clapping." Vanessa tossed her hair. "And we keep donors by keeping claps." "Then let's ask for both," Cassidy said. "Applause that funds Tuesday." She looked at Silas again. "You said yesterday that food and joy aren't favors, they're maintenance." He nodded. "I have rooms," she said. She nodded at Bianca, "can make them kind." Marcus, keeps us honest. Clara, you keep us efficient and legal. Vanessa, if you want to point cameras, point them at homework being done because a bus voucher got a kid there." Cassidy's voice stayed soft, but it started carrying. "But understand this, if the lens ever becomes the point, it's out." Vanessa made a face halfway between offended and calculating. "I can work with Impact Core," she said. "It tests well." "It lives better," Marcus said. Silas reached for the insurance rider. "I didn't come to make trouble," he said. "You didn't," Cassidy replied. "You brought clarity." He slid a signed copy back to Marcus. "One more thing," he added, glancing at the women and then back to Cassidy. "Grace isn't a PR risk, it's a ledger entry. It always pays out, just not always to you." Clara looked away first. Bianca's eyes softened again and stayed that way. Vanessa typed something with a speed that meant she was already building a new narrative in which she was the protagonist. Cassidy stood. The room followed as rooms tend to follow money. But what they were following just then wasn't money. It was a decision. "We'll reconvene in 48 hours, she said. "Bring me a plan that marries theater to plumbing, and build it so the applause is a side effect, not the goal." Vanessa opened her mouth. Cassidy raised a hand. "And leave the helicopter grounded." Bianca almost laughed. Clara did not. Marcus did quietly into his sleeve. Silas moved toward the door. Cassidy stepped with him into the hall, away from the eyes that read everything as strategy. "Thank you," she said, "for what he asked. For choosing kids over rooms," she said, "and for letting me learn in mine." He nodded toward the bay. "Rooms have windows," he said. "Open one, and the air changes." She stood there after he left, palms flat against the cool of the glass, the city humming like a question she finally wanted to answer honestly. Behind her, the team shuffled papers, guarded their corners, rehearsed new lines. Ahead of her, somewhere in a courtyard that still smelled a little like charcoal and sugar, a banner that said, "You belong here," had not yet been taken down. Marcus joined her. "He didn't come to be impressive," he said. "No," she replied. "He came to be true. And that," Marcus said, "is harder to keep on payroll." "We'll find a way," Cassidy said. "Because it's good he asked." "Because it's necessary," she said. "And because I am very tired of rooms where generosity is a costume." She turned from the window, not with a speech, but with a list permits buses, choir rehearsals, the modest miracle of homework tables. If you want an empire to change, you start by changing the calendar. Behind her, Vanessa texted a videographer. Clara booked a follow-up at the Fountain Club. Bianca messaged a children's choir director, and the slow elevator of integrity kept rising, one floor closer to where it needed to stop. The first alert hit like a fire alarm. "Is your janitor skimming charity money from a billionaire Sound City ledger?" Breaking Marcus read it twice, then a third time, as if repetition might turn rumor into typo. Across the office, Cassidy's phone began vibrating in a steady, punishing rhythm. Her inbox bloomed with subject lines that tasted like metal. "Say it," she told Marcus, eyes on the bay. He did, voice flat. Anonymous sources. Irregular invoices tied to St. Mary's event. A screenshot of what looks like an event consultancy fee to S. Boone. $5,000. The ledger cites a Rhodes insider and a high-profile donor. "My insider," Cassidy said quietly. "Or someone pretending to be." He answered. "Clara's logged on. Vanessa just posted a story about accountability culture." Bianca. Silent. Cassidy's desk phone lit Channel 7 News, then The Herald, then Legal. "Patch counsel in?" she said. "Marcus, find the trail. Pull the last 72 hours of card activity, internal memos, vendor comms, anything that touched St. Mary's." "And?" Silas Marcus asked. Cassidy's throat moved. "Call him." "No text," she corrected, hating the word as she said it. "Tell him I'm on it." On the other side of the city, Silas was tightening the lid on a container of leftover beans when his cheap phone lit up in the shadow of the microwave. "You seeing this, Luis?" He clicked the link. The headline knocked the air out of his kitchen. He read the first paragraph twice. The words didn't change. Anonymous sources within Rhodes Global allege that janitor Silas Boone, a recent beneficiary of CEO Cassidy Rhodes's experimental no-limit card, diverted funds via inflated vendor invoices and a consultancy fee tied to last Saturday's youth event. His eyes caught on the screenshot. A Rhodes template. Clean type. The color of a brand he vacuumed under. Event Consultancy St. Mary's Youth Home, S. Boone, $5,000. Paid. The memo line, logistics plus program design. "I didn't bill anybody," he said aloud to the cabinets to Clover's one good eye. "I bought hot dogs and face paint. I bought insurance." The phone trembled in his palm. Another buzz. A number he didn't know. "Mr. Boone. This is Kathleen from Channel 7. We're covering a developing story and would love your comment. I have to." "Pick up my daughter," he said, which was true enough to end the call. He grabbed his jacket, the one with the seam he needed to sew. He was halfway to the door when Lila's drawing clover in a crown fell from the fridge magnet tired. He tucked it into his pocket, then tucked the pocket into his ribs. Outside, the sky had chosen gray. He walked to the bus stop faster than he needed to because sometimes speed is the only thing you can control. At Rhodes Global Legal spoke in the careful cadence of people who know each sentence might be subpoenaed. "Do not comment until we've reviewed counsel," said Tinney over speaker. "We'll retain a forensic accountant today. Any statement now only adds oxygen." Marcus muted. "Oxygen is already plentiful," he said. "This is moving," Wait counsel insisted. "We need facts." "I have facts," Marcus said. Silas bought food supplies insurance. He didn't get a penny. "Facts and receipts are cousins," counsel replied. "I need the receipts." Cassidy pinched the bridge of her nose. "Find them," she told Marcus. "But find the leak first." He nodded, jaw tight. On it. A tap at the door. Clara stood there, immaculate neutral, carrying a sympathy that looked ironed. "I'm so sorry about the noise," she said. "I've drafted a statement emphasizing our commitment to transparency." "Before we know what happened?" Cassidy asked. "The internet doesn't wait for what happened," Clara replied, tone professional, hands steady. "It waits for tone. Say you're looking into it, promise oversight, stress that we take any allegation seriously." Marcus met her eyes. "We take people seriously," he said. "We take liability seriously," Clara corrected softly and set a draft on the desk. Cassidy didn't pick it up. At the elementary school gate, a parent whispered loudly enough to count as a statement. Silas pretended to tie his shoe. Words still found him. The Rhodes thing knew it was too good, those types always. He straightened. Lila barreled toward him with her backpack thumping cadence against the only man who didn't need to be convinced to wait. Her smile blurred when she saw his face. "Everything okay?" she asked. He kept his voice even. "We're going to have a quiet night." "Is quiet like sprinkles?" she asked. "Because that sounds boring." "Quiet is like soup," he said. "You don't crave it until you need it." One kid in a puffer jacket pointed cruel without context. "Hey, my mom says you stole from orphans." Lila's chin snapped up. "My dad doesn't steal," she said, and her voice broke a little in the middle. "He returns shopping carts when it rains." Silas put a hand on her shoulder. "Let's go bug." At the corner, he crouched to eye level. "Someone wrote a bad story about me," he said. "We'll fix it. Until then, guess what? What chowder," he said. "And a movie where the dog wins." "Dogs always win," she said. "Not always," he said. "But today, they do." Back at Rhodes, Vanessa's video hit 250,000 views by mid-afternoon. She looked studio-lit and contrite in a way that sold skincare. Friends she began generosity must be accountable. That's why I'm calling for full transparency around recent spending. I believe in giving, but not in blind giving. If I'm going to put my platform behind a cause, I need receipts. We all do. I hope Rhodes Global agrees. She didn't say Silas's name. She didn't have to. The comments did the rest, knew it. They always game the system. "Janitor, please." Someone clipped a photo of Silas's laugh at St. Mary's and slapped on a caption that made it look like he was counting money. Bianca texted Cassidy a single line. "This feels wrong." Then, after a long pause, "What do you need?" Marcus finally traced the invoice, a template cloned from Rhodes PR metadata, scrubbed sent from a throwaway domain. The vendor signature didn't match the bakery's owner. The font in the memo line was off by half a point. "Amateur or arrogant," Marcus said. "Or both," Cassidy answered, and the thought coiled into shape. Who had access to templates, who had motive, who had called for tone when truth was the ask. She didn't say the name forming in her chest. Names needed proof. Her phone rang. Channel 7 again. She let it ring. Legal's caution sat on her tongue like a coin she couldn't spit out. "Say something," Marcus whispered. "Not to them. To him." She stared at the screen until the call died. Then she typed, "I'm with you. Gathering facts. Don't say anything to press." "See." The 3 dots pulsed, then stopped, then pulsed again. "Thanks. I wasn't planning to talk. I was planning to work. Essie, she typed. Deleted. Typed again. Deleted. Again. She didn't see Silas walk into the lobby until the receptionist drew herself up like a question mark. He stood at the desk with Lila's hand tucked in his sleeves, rolled eyes tired but clear, the way a man looks when his character is under audit. Miss Rhodes, the receptionist, said into the handset, "Mr. Boone is here." Cassidy met them by the elevators. The three of them stood for a second in a triangle of complicated. "Your office," Silas said gentle, "please." Inside, Marcus closed the door and turned off the notifications as if quiet might save what noise had broken. Silas set a small cloth bag on the table. The sound of keys inside it was softer than the moment deserved. Badge, codes, keys to the East Freight and the 8th floor supply. "Don't," Cassidy said too fast. He didn't sit. "I clean floors," he said. "I can't work under one that thinks it might give way." "I don't," she said. "Silas, I don't." He looked at her and she understood there are looks you earn and looks you can only lose. "I'm not asking you to defend me to the internet," he said. "I'm asking you to defend me to yourself." "I am," she said, and hated the sound of the future. Perfect tense. "I just need time," he supplied. "You need time. I need trust." The line landed between them with the precision of a mechanic laying a wrench on a bench. Legal says she started. Legal says, wait, he finished. I get it. And when this is over, I'll still be the guy who pushes a mop. The internet will go back to arguing about sneakers. But today, my kid heard a sentence at a school gate that will echo longer than your press release. "I'm sorry," she said, and she meant it in a way that didn't feel like the right currency. "Me too," he said. "I wanted you to be faster than fear. Fear of what she asked. Fear of being wrong about me." He said, quiet. Fear of loving the wrong kind of man in the right kind of room. The sentence cut without bleeding. Marcus stepped forward not to interfere, but to testify. "Silas, I know you didn't do this," he said. "I'm pulling threads. They'll snap." "I believe you," Silas said. "I wanted her to say it first." Cassidy swallowed. "I believe you." He smiled small. "Say it to a camera," he said. "Say it to my kid." "I will," she said. "But I have to be sure," he said, saving her from the verb. He lifted the cloth bag and set it back in his palm. "Keep these until you are." "Don't do this," she whispered. He shook his head. "I can't teach Lila to stand in rooms that hesitate for her. I have to show her the door is also an option." He turned. At the threshold, he looked back. "You told me to keep both hands on the handle of that learner's sword," he said. "Turns out it's heavy." "It is," she said. "Maybe we'll both get stronger," he said. "Or maybe we'll learn to set it down when it cuts the wrong people." The door closed behind him with the soft click of a choice you don't want and make anyway. Cassidy sat very still. The room around her was expensive and suddenly unhelpful. She wanted to run after him with a yes loud enough to cancel the internet. She wanted to be right, and she wanted to be brave, and for the first time in a decade she understood she might have to pick. Marcus placed a printout on her desk. The fake invoice blown up. He tapped the misaligned font with his pen. "They got sloppy," he said. "We can catch sloppy." "Catch it," she said. "And when we do, I'm going to say his name out loud and put mine beside it." Her phone vibrated one more time. Bianca. "If you need a stage to do this right, I'll build it. No flowers, just light." Vanessa posted again. "Grateful to partner with brands who care about transparency," she cooed. "We deserve better from our heroes." Clara emailed a revised statement. "We will cooperate fully with any inquiry." Cassidy deleted it. Then she opened a new draft. 4 words. No comma, no hedge. "We stand with Boone." She didn't send it. Not yet. But it glowed there, a sentence waiting for a spine. Outside, the city kept being itself, buses, sirens, kids racing. Cassidy stared at the words until they imprinted, then closed the laptop like a vow she hadn't earned. Sometimes the slow elevator stalls between floors. Sometimes it needs somebody to pry the doors and climb. Silas Boone had cleaned buildings long enough to know when something couldn't be scrubbed out. The rumor was everywhere on buses and checkout lines in the tired eyes of neighbors who didn't ask but clearly wondered. He rose before dawn, poured coffee into the dented thermos June had bought him years ago, and pulled on his work jacket. But when he reached for his badge, the silence of the pocket told him what he already knew. He'd left it on Cassidy's desk. Dad, Lila's voice came from the kitchen table where she sat cross-legged with Clover perched beside her cereal bowl. "Are you going to work?" He forced a smile. "Not today, Bug. Today's for figuring out what's next." "Did they fire you?" she asked, straight as only a child can be. Silas crouched hands on her small shoulders. "Nobody gets to fire me from being your dad. That's the only job I can't lose." Her eyes searched his testing for cracks. "Then we'll be okay." He kissed the top of her head. "We'll always be okay. Might not be rich, might not be quiet, but okay." At Rhodes Global, Cassidy walked the length of her office like a caged argument. Marcus Hale waited by the glass wall, hands folded. "Any luck with the audit?" she asked. "Plenty of smoke," he replied. "I'm closing in on the match. But until we name who lit it, silence will eat us alive." "I let fear drive the wheel," she admitted. "Silas needed me to slam the brakes. I froze." Marcus's voice softened. "Cass, you're used to boardrooms where hesitation buys time. With men like Boone, hesitation costs trust." She stopped pacing. "Do you think he'll come back?" Marcus didn't answer quickly, which was an answer in itself. At St. Mary's Youth Home, Helen Park met Silas at the gate. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though her tone wasn't unkind. "I promised the kids I'd check the bikes," Silas replied, holding up a small tool kit. Park sighed. "You know the Ledger called this morning, asking if we felt exploited." "Did you?" Silas asked. Her expression broke into gentleness. "No. We felt fed. We felt seen. But not everyone hears the truth louder than the headlines." He nodded, kneeling by a rust-red chain. His fingers found the stubborn link, worked it until it turned smooth. "Sometimes all you can do is oil what squeaks." Luis Ramirez came out carrying folding chairs. "Boone," he said, "don't let them write your obituary while you're still breathing." Silas smiled faintly. "I don't intend to. But right now the internet writes faster than I live." Meanwhile, Vanessa Cole filmed another clip in a studio white room. "Transparency is love," she told her audience, "and love needs proof. We can't clap for generosity if it hides receipts." The comments poured in like Reinhardt's Flames daggers. Clara Jensen slid into a Fountain Club luncheon, murmuring to donors that Rhodes Global would course correct. Her voice was all velvet over steel. Bianca Torres, however, sat in her apartment surrounded by half-finished mock-ups. She stared at a blank board and whispered, "This isn't right." Back in Silas's apartment, Lila spread her crayons across the floor. "Dad," she asked, sketching a castle with crooked towers, "are we the bad guys now?" He froze mid-sip of soup from a can. "Why would you think that?" "Because everyone online says you stole." She bit her lip. "Do bad guys throw parties with sprinkles?" "No," he said firmly, setting down the spoon. "Bad guys keep sprinkles for themselves. Good guys share them even when people don't clap." Her shoulders relaxed. "Then we're still good." "Yes," he said, though the word felt heavier than it should. "We're still good." He looked around the apartment, peeling paint a stack of unpaid bills, but also the rabbit drawing pinned crooked on the fridge. He realized goodness alone might not be enough to shield his daughter from the world's suspicion. Cassidy spent that night in her penthouse staring at the city. Its skyline was a crown, but it felt borrowed. Marcus's words echoed hesitation costs, trust. She picked up her phone 3 times to call Silas and each time set it down. Finally, she dialed Bianca. "Tell me the truth," Cassidy said without preamble. "The truth is, the man bought balloons and hot dogs and made orphans feel like kings." Bianca said, her voice rough. "If that's theft, then we should all plead guilty." Cassidy closed her eyes. Then why am I so slow to defend him? Because you've been betrayed before, Bianca said. But if you let that fear write this story, you'll betray him instead. The line went quiet. Cassidy knew the next move wasn't strategy, it was courage. At dawn, Silas walked Lila to school. Whispers followed like shadows. A mother tugged her child closer. A man in a suit shook his head. Lila squeezed her father's hand. Dad, don't listen. He knelt eye level in the crisp morning light. Listening is how we learn bug. But today we choose what not to believe. What do we believe then? He tapped her chest gently. That what's true in here will outlast what's loud out there. Her eyes glistened, then cleared. Then I believe you. That evening, Silas sat by the small kitchen table with the bills spread like an accusation. He scribbled numbers, moved them around, but the math didn't bend. He whispered to himself, "People think money is freedom. Truth is money's just time on loan." A knock rattled the door. He opened it to find Luis holding a sack of groceries. From the staff, Luis said, "No speeches, just soup." Silas swallowed hard. "I don't want charity." Luis placed the bag on the floor. "Then call it a loan. Pay us back with more balloon swords when this storm passes." Silas's laugh cracked like glass. "That I can afford." Back in her tower, Cassidy drafted a dozen statements and deleted them all. Words weren't the answer. Action was. Marcus entered quietly. "Have you decided?" he asked. "Yes," she said. "I can't fix yesterday, but I can choose tomorrow. Boone won't walk this storm alone." She closed the laptop with finality. "And if it cost me every chandelier in this city, so be it. I'd rather hang a coat hook." Marcus smiled rare and real. "Then you've already passed your own test." She didn't answer. She only stared at the horizon where dawn threatened again, and whispered the words she wished Silas could hear in that moment. "I believe you." The scandal didn't fade. It fermented. For 3 days, headlines bloomed like weeds across every screen. Talk radio asked if the billionaire's janitor was a symbol of misplaced sympathy. Hashtags morphed into verdicts. And through it all, Silas Boone carried groceries home with his head bent while Cassidy Rhodes sat in a penthouse that felt more like a witness stand than a home. At dawn, on the 4th day, Marcus Hale placed a folder on Cassidy's desk. He didn't speak until she looked up from the untouched coffee. "You're not crazy," he said. The invoice was fake. She flipped through the evidence metadata logs, mismatched fonts, a timestamp that betrayed the forgery. Who, she asked, her voice more gravel than silk. Marcus leaned on the desk. Vanessa bragged at a cafe about exposing the fraud. Someone overheard. And Clara's digital fingerprints are all over the template. She had access, she had motive, and she had the arrogance to think you wouldn't check. Cassidy shut the folder with a snap. So the execution was sloppy, but the intent was precise. "They wanted him gone," Marcus said. "And they wanted you to doubt him." Cassidy pressed her hands together. They succeeded in both. Silence spread heavy until she spoke again. "What does that make me, Marcus?" He didn't soften the blow. "It makes you human, and it makes you late." Cassidy exhaled long and uneven. "Then I'll be early for what comes next." That evening, Cassidy pulled into the cracked parking lot of St. Mary's Youth Home. Children darted around the yard with paper kites, their laughter cutting through the dusk. She hadn't come with cameras or staff, just herself, a folder under her arm, and the weight of choices on her shoulders. Helen Park met her at the gate, arms folded. "You've got nerve showing up here." "I've also got proof," Cassidy said, holding out the folder. Park didn't take it. "Proof doesn't heal what your silence cost him," I know, Cassidy admitted, "but it might heal what comes next." From the yard, Silas spotted them. He set down a wrench he'd been fixing a loose swing chain and walked over Lila, trailing with her rabbit tucked tight. His face was calm, but his eyes carried storms. "Why are you here?" he asked, voice low. Cassidy swallowed. "Because I owe you the truth. And an apology." Silas waited. Vanessa and Clara forged the invoice, she said. Marcus traced it. We have the evidence. I'll clear your name publicly, but that doesn't erase that I doubted you when it mattered. Lila looked up at her father, confusion clouding her innocent gaze. See, Daddy. You didn't steal. No bug, he said softly. I didn't. Then to Cassidy, his voice sharpened. You think proving I'm not a thief fixes the fact that I had to watch my daughter hear it first? Cassidy's throat tightened. No, but it's where we start. For a moment, the only sound was children's laughter carried on wind. You told me once Silas said that money shows who people really are. Well, scandal shows it too. And when it showed me you, I saw silence. Cassidy's eyes stung. You're right. But I want to show you something else now. Courage. Faith. A choice to stand with you even when the world won't clap. Helen Park finally spoke quieter now. If you mean that, Ms. Rhodes, then don't bring speeches. Bring action. Cassidy nodded. Then action it is. The next morning, Cassidy confronted Vanessa Cole at a rooftop brunch. Cameras surrounded them. Influencers glittered like sequins in the sun. Vanessa purred, rising for a hug that Cassidy didn't return. So, good to see you. I was just telling my followers that healing begins with accountability. Cassidy dropped the folder on the table. Then you'll love this. It's full of accountability. Signed by you. Vanessa's smile faltered. What's this supposed to... It's the invoice you bragged about, creating Cassidy cut in her voice loud enough for the nearest camera to catch. I hope your followers like the truth as much as filters. Gasps rippled across the rooftop. Someone's phone stopped mid-record. Vanessa's face drained of its gloss. Cassidy turned on her heel, leaving the folder behind like a verdict. That afternoon, she entered Clara Jensen's office without knocking. Clara looked up from her desk, lips pressed into a patient smile. Ms. Rhodes. Clara began. I was just drafting the next statement. Save your words, Cassidy snapped. She tossed another file onto the desk. Your keystrokes, your metadata, your betrayal. I trusted you with my voice, and you used it to silence a man who never asked for anything but honesty. Clara's smile didn't waver, but her eyes hardened. Cassidy, think carefully. I know more about your world than anyone. You cut me loose, and I'll cut back. Cassidy leaned forward, her voice ablade. You already did. The difference is, I'm not afraid to bleed. You are. She turned to leave, then added, Clear your desk. By tonight. That evening, Cassidy sat again at her penthouse window. The city was still noisy, still hungry, but for once she felt not like prey, not like predator, just a woman finally choosing what to believe. Marcus entered quietly. So, you've got the culprits. What's next? She didn't hesitate. We make it right, not in a press release, in public, in a place that matters, where he asked. She thought of Silas of Lila, of the words that still clung to her. I wanted you to be faster than fear. At St. Mary's, she said, Where the lies began, the truth will stand. Across town, Silas tucked Lila into bed. She whispered, Dad, will people stop saying bad things about you? He brushed hair from her face. Maybe not all of them, but the truth has a longer breath than lies. Then I'll hold it with you, she said, gripping his hand until sleep pulled her under. Silas sat in the dark a long time, her words echoing in his chest. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for the first time since the storm broke, he felt the faintest shift like a door cracking toward light. The gymnasium at St. Mary's smelled of chalk dust and popcorn. Its peeling banners had witnessed decades of dodgeball games, but today, rows of folding chairs transformed it into a courtroom of truth. Reporters lined the back cameras, balanced on their shoulders. Children peeked through doorways, wide-eyed at the spectacle. Cassidy Rhodes stood at the podium, the same woman who had once promised herself never to kneel. Now she adjusted the microphone with hands that trembled not from fear of cameras but from the weight of finally choosing sides. Thank you for coming, she began, her voice steady, though her pulse thundered. I asked you here not in a ballroom or boardroom, but in the place where lies began to grow, and where the truth will now take root." She unfolded the folder Marcus had handed her. "3 weeks ago, my company issued 4 cards for an experiment I created. I believed money would reveal character. It did. Not in the way I expected, but in the way I needed. 2 individuals, Vanessa Cole and Clara Jensen, chose deception. They fabricated invoices to frame an innocent man. Gasps rippled through the room. Reporters scribbled. Vanessa, seated at the back in sunglasses far too large for the dim gym, crossed her arms, her jaw tight. Clara was conspicuously absent. Cassidy continued, her voice sharpening. The man they tried to destroy was Silas Boone, a janitor, a father, a man who used his card not for himself but for children who have less than nothing. They smeared his name and I. Her voice cracked just slightly. I allowed doubt to silence me. The silence in the room deepened. She pressed on. That silence was my failure, and I stand here to say I was wrong. At the edge of the gym, Silas Boone shifted, holding Lila's hand. The little girl squeezed his fingers. "She's telling the truth, Daddy," she whispered. Cassidy's eyes found his across the room. Mr. Boone didn't steal. He gave. He gave joy food, laughter, dignity. While I measured costs, he measured children's smiles. Today, I returned to him not only his good name, but my apology. I failed to trust the one person who deserved it most. She closed the folder and bowed her head, not theatrically, but with the humility of someone unaccustomed to bending. Cameras flashed, but for once Cassidy didn't hear them. Silas rose slowly. The room parted as he walked forward, Lila clutching his hand until she let go her stuffed rabbit, tumbling to the floor. He stopped a few feet from the podium, his presence quiet yet enormous. "You think words fix this?" he asked, his tone gentle but unyielding. Cassidy swallowed. "No, but they begin to. And I will not stop until action finishes what apology cannot." Silas studied her. "Do you know what Lila asked me the day this broke, what she whispered? She asked if we were the bad guys now." His eyes burned not with anger but with the ache of memory. "Do you know what it's like to look at your child and not have an answer?" Cassidy's throat closed. "I do now." The words hung there raw and fragile. Lila broke the tension, darting forward to grab Cassidy's hand. "If you're sorry, then you can be good again. Daddy says grace always pays back." The crowd melted at her innocence. Even the reporters lowered their pens. Silas exhaled, long and tired. He looked at his daughter, then back at Cassidy. "She has more faith than either of us." Cassidy's eyes glistened. "Then let her faith lead us." The room stilled as if the walls themselves wanted to hear his reply. Finally, Silas nodded once. "All right, but this isn't about me. It's about them." He gestured to the children, craning their necks at the doorway. "If we're going to do something, we do it for them." Cassidy straightened, resolve crystallizing. "Then, from this day forward, Rhodes Global will fund a community trust for St. Mary's and beyond. Managed not by executives but by teachers, parents, and workers like Mr. Boone. My money may build it, but their hands will shape it." The crowd erupted applause, shouts, even tears. For the first time, Cassidy didn't feel like the richest person in the room. She felt like the most human. Silas bent down to pick up Lila's stuffed rabbit. He dusted it off, then held it out to her. She beamed and clutched it tight. Before he could step back, Cassidy whispered just for him, "Let me prove this isn't a performance." He met her gaze, cautious but open. "Then prove it where no cameras follow." "I will," she promised. Lila tugged his hand. "Daddy, can we stay? She looks lonely." Silas looked at Cassidy, then at his daughter. "Maybe for a while," he said. And for the first time in weeks, Cassidy allowed herself to breathe. The truth had not only cleared a name, it had cracked open a door. And sometimes that was all redemption needed to begin. 6 months later, the penthouse no longer felt like glass and marble, it felt like a home. The long dining table, once set only for silent dinners, Cassidy Rhodes ate alone now, overflowed with noise and warmth. Bowls of mashed potatoes and roasted chicken passed from hand to hand. Children from St. Mary's laughed as they clattered forks against plates. Marcus poured lemonade into cups with the precision of a maitre d'. Even Bianca Sleeves Rolled helped serve dessert she'd baked herself. At the head of the table sat Silas Boone, his daughter Lila nestled beside him and across from him, Cassidy, her posture softer, her eyes brighter, her walls gone. "Daddy, can you pass the rolls?" Lila asked her, tone playful, eyes mischievous. Silas chuckled, handing her the basket. "Careful, Bug, you'll eat all the bread before the pie comes out." "Bread is just pie training," she announced, and the table erupted with laughter. Cassidy watched her, the girl who had been at the center of every choice Silas had made, and felt something settle inside her like roots taking hold. She leaned forward. "Lila, I have a question." The little girl tilted her head. "What?" Cassidy's voice softened. "Would it be all right if... Sometimes you called me Mom." The table quieted, every ear waiting. Lila blinked, then grinned so wide it lit the whole room. "I already do," she said matter-of-factly. "In my prayers." Cassidy's breath caught tears glimmering. Silas reached across the table, his calloused hand finding hers. For a long moment, words weren't necessary. Finally, Silas spoke, voice steady, carrying the kind of weight that lingers in the heart. "Cassidy, your money can build skyscrapers and it can build schools. But it was your courage that built this table. And it's faith, not fortune, that keeps us sitting at it together." Cassidy squeezed his hand. "Then let's keep building. Together." The children clapped as if they understood, and in some way they did. Marcus lifted his glass. "To second chances," he said. To second chances, the room echoed voices overlapping in a chorus of hope. Bianca dabbed her eyes discreetly with a napkin. "To families," she added softly. Silas looked at Lila, then at Cassidy, then at the faces around him. "To homes," he said simply. The toast rang true. Later that night, after the children had dozed off in guest rooms filled with blankets and stuffed animals, Silas stood by the window. The city stretched beneath him, restless and bright. Cassidy joined him, her arm brushing his. "You ever think we'd end up here?" she asked. He smiled faintly. "I thought I'd end up wherever Lila needed me. Turns out she needed you too." Cassidy leaned her head against his shoulder. "And you." He turned, pressing a kiss to her forehead. "I needed a reminder that faith isn't foolish, that love doesn't ask for credentials. It just asks for courage." They stood there in silence, the kind that doesn't press but protects the kind that says everything without saying anything. Behind them, the table was still set, crumbs and laughter lingering in the air. Ahead of them, a city waited, still flawed, still noisy, but maybe a little better, because two unlikely people had decided to trust. And in that moment, in that home, filled with light and second chances, they finally understood. What money reveals, love redeems. And so, dear friends, our story comes to a close, not with riches or applause, but with something far greater, trust, love, and the courage to begin again. But now, I'd like to turn to you. Where are you listening from tonight? Drop your city or state in the comments. I'd love to see how far this little family story has traveled. If this tale touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to the channel so you'll never miss the next story of hope, healing, and second chances. And finally, thank you. Truly, thank you for sharing your time with me, for opening your heart to Silas Cassidy and little Lila. Until next time, may your days be filled with kindness, and may you never stop believing in the quiet miracles that change lives.